The world is hurting right now, and it's time to rise up. As we lift ourselves up in body, mind, and spirit, we can reach out to others and be a light in a sea of darkness. Welcome to the Movement for Global Health with your host, Dr. Mary Zennett.
Today, we are truly welcome. We're privileged to have Justin Bethoney, Nurse Practitioner, with us. Justin has been in private practice as a psych NP for over 10 years. He cares for adults and children with mental health conditions that are very high functioning. They're working, they're in school, but they seek out Justin's help because they want to optimize their mental health well-being. So we're really privileged to have him here today, and we're going to learn a lot. Justin primarily focuses on the emotional distress that's associated with anxiety, mood disorders, and ADHD. Justin graduated from the Massachusetts General Institute of Health Professions in 2011. And in 2020, he wrote and released the Mental Wellness Diet. And we're going to be talking more about that, and we will give you the link below. And the book is based on the idea that if we feed our brain with the nutrients that it craves, we will be better able to feel and function at our best. So Justin, welcome.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yeah, very happy to have you here. I read your book. Your book is really excellent. And I wanna right from the start for our listeners, the link will be below. We really want them to click on the link, get a copy. You've got several forms, right? You've got ebook,
Kindle, ebook. It's on a paperback on Amazon. That's the easiest way to get the paperback.
Okay.
And recently, I got an audiobook going. So it's not my voice. Actually, here's a benefit of modern day life. I paid a service. An AI computer read the book.
Really?
Yeah, that made it kind of doable and fast and much better than probably it would have been if I read it. And
wow.
So that was a really neat thing. And so you can download that off of the website, thementalwellnessdiet.com.
Okay, beautiful. So we'll get that link for our listeners to hop on and get that book, because there's a lot of information, a lot of important information there. You know, I listened to that book, and you talked about the canary in the coal mine. Can you talk a little bit about that as it pertains to our topic?
Sure. I tried to jam pack as much helpful tidbits and nuggets and information about brain science and nutrition and lifestyle into the book as possible, but I also valued the read. I also valued the readability, the digestibility, no pun intended. And I often used a lot of analogies in the book to kind of help make real and help explain what's going on. Us humans dropped into this modern day world. What's the mismatch? And so the canary in the coal mine, not everyone has heard of this, but when coal miners would go down into the dusty caves and dig for coal, sometimes they would unearth lethal gases like carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is odorless, and so they wouldn't be aware of the danger. So they would bring a canary, a yellow bright canary, into the cave. And if they looked over and they saw the canary keeled over in the cage, they would say, okay, something's happened. We got to get out of here. And they would be able to read that signal and escape and get away.
Yeah. So what's the analogy today? What's the canary in the coal mine today? I mean, that's quite an analogy. Here's a poor canary dying. It's like, so what do our listeners need to make the connection with?
Well, it can be complicated. We're all supposed to have feelings. We're all supposed to be sad, angry, frustrated, lonely at times. Feelings are important. Mental health symptoms stem from feelings, but they generally are larger, more severe, more impactful, more persistent, really interrupting our lives and really harmful and awful. The mental health symptoms that many of us face are the canaries. And not necessarily for every mental illness, but definitely for anxiety and depression, they could be signals to us. It's the canary keeled over that says, hey, you got to make some changes. You got to get out of this lethal environment. You got to escape. You got to make some changes.
Wow. And we don't think we hear that often enough.
Well, healthcare today, right? Healthcare today, it's kind of, there's the term throughput. When a person walks through a door, because of the healthcare is designed the way it's designed, you're not necessarily a person. You kind of are a bit more of a number or a project or a puzzle than a person. And so, what we hear is, well, this happens, don't worry about it, take this pill, try this surgery, do this, or don't worry about it, and next.
Exactly. One size fits all, very medication focused, but no real understanding of the dynamics, of the depth that's really going on under the surface when somebody is struggling with depression, anxiety, ADHD. So in your practice, do you do therapy as well?
Yeah, the way I'm fortunate in Oregon, it's a very friendly state and very generous with health insurance reimbursements. So I spend an hour with patients. When patients are doing well, we cut it back to a half an hour. But starting out, it's a 2-hour intake to kind of get the full story. And then an hour, out of that hour follow-up, it could be maybe 5 or 10 minutes about any medications that we're trying. And the rest is the story and what's going on and how they're making meaning of what's going on for them in their life. And a lot of education.
So profound. And that model is certainly not the prevailing model today.
No, I hear things online about people wanting to move back to that. I remember.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah, networking with, there was this therapist in town who was towards retirement age, past retirement age. And I was telling her about my hour-long follow-ups. And I thought it was my idea. And she said, no. All the old-timer psychiatrists in town, they all do hour-long follow-ups. It used to be. It's not a new idea.
No, I'll be honest with you. Okay, so let me tell you, I trained as an adult psychiatrist, and the child psychiatry was at Northwestern. And Northwestern was a very, very dynamically oriented. I mean, we would do hours of evaluations for the children and their families. This huge. It was just remarkable. So that was from 84 to 86. Okay. And then, and that was in the Chicago area. So then I was in practice. So for the first few years, I had the latitude to have that hour time. And then by the 90s, I'll just tell you my experience. The fast forward, it was like somebody pressed a fast forward on a treadmill. And then we were seeing people, 30 minutes, and then it went to 20, 30, 20, 15, 20 minutes. What can you do? What can you do in 15, 20 minutes?
Well, wasn't Prozac either invented or released in 1987?
Oh, yeah, it was right around that time. Absolutely.
Put it in the timeline. Yeah.
everything converged. And then there was this HMO Act and all of this, and it was everything shifted. It became a top-down approach. And you know, as a practitioner, I was just, you just don't know what to do. It's like they pulled the carpet out from under you, not only me, but our patients. And so I think that those models prevailed for quite some time. And I'm just so grateful to hear that in Oregon that you're changing.
Yeah, yeah, and a few of my colleagues up here are doing something similar. It's really great. You know what I was thinking about the other day? You know, I get the sense that if you are a specialist, liver, kidney, heart, even brain, you know, there's a good understanding, and then there's, you know, the doctor can communicate. You know, first you learn normal function. First you learn how the organ works. Well, what about the mind, body, and spirit? You know, all I got was my 5th grade health class, talking about self-esteem and moods and feelings and thinking and memory and all these things. You know, psychiatry, I think we need to do a little bit better job at diagnosing normal before we jump to diagnosing abnormal.
Exactly, because as you said earlier, okay, we all have emotions. We all have emotions, and we shouldn't necessarily pathologize them, but help people navigate. Like you say, is that canary singing? What does this mean? What's the meaning of this symptom? And then what can we do about it and optimize? I think it's much more personal, it's much more meaningful. So I applaud you for what you're doing. I think it's so needed. It is so needed. And I'm hoping, because we talk about health reform issues, we have on other podcasts. So I'm hoping our listeners get some real encouragement from that. The people like yourself and your colleagues they're doing something about this.
Well, it's partly selfish. I mean, I enjoy my job.
Exactly.
I got a better batting average, you know. The doctor burnout and the moral injury, you know, that topic is really big now. You know, all the doctors and nurses are kind of reaching their limit, and I think it has a lot to do with that healthcare system we were just talking about, all the pressures.
Exactly. So let's get back to mental health. Let's talk about, because you talk a lot in your book about diet. So give our listeners the overview of the connection with diet and mental health.
So let's define the word diet, because diet often can be a turnoff. But I was aiming for a bestseller, so I had to put the word diet in the title. It's not prescriptive, and it's not harsh, and it's not definitive. You know, the diet here includes food that we can ingest, lifestyle activities that we can put in our daily life, our meaning and purpose diet, you know, our sensory sensation diet. So the diet is kind of more about maybe just a roadmap or a template for what to try to include in our life and what try to exclude. So the diet for the food part, you know, no surprise, sugar, limited grains is part of my diet. And those would be some of the more important things: trans fats, the processed food. If it comes in a shiny package, don't eat it. So that's kind of what to exclude. What to include is listed based on priority, based on the concept of nutrient density, which is a concept that's gaining popularity. For every single bite of food, how much nutrients is jam-packed in that food, you know? So organ meats has B vitamins, copper, iron, zinc, other protein factors, really important stuff. You compare that to Cheerios, it blows Cheerios out of the water. So that's kind of one of the main staples. The organ meats, animal meats is behind that. Seafood and shellfish and fish, really important. Fermented foods, and then colorful fruits and vegetables for the polyphenols and flavonoids. Flavonoids, I think, will become a really interesting topic moving into the future. turmeric, ECCG from green tea, resveratrol, rutin, luteolin, all these compounds which have funny sounding names, which I think we'll come to understand and know how to pronounce in 10 years. These things do great things in the body and in the brain. And if your brain's healthy, you're probably going to have better brain function. If your brain functions better, you'll probably be able to cope better. And most likely you'll have less impactful mental illness symptoms.
Wow. Well, that's a broad overview, but I hope our listeners are catching all those really important categories of foods, all of them. And, I know people are a little bit anxious and resistant to the organ meats, but I've heard, I've taken classes with Chris Kresser, and I just think the world of him, and he writes a lot about this.
Yeah, and that's kind of what turned me on to the ancestral diet lifestyle.
Yes,
Chris Kresser, followed him for
absolutely. And I strongly encourage our listeners to get online. If you have, I do this. If I have a topic, I want to know what Chris Kresser thinks about it.
Yeah.
Pop on there and just, get in. He'll have an excellent review article. And like you said, too, the fermented, really important, really, all this is really important. And as you said earlier, if it's packaged, you know what, take a pass on it. I'll be very honest with you. I mean, so much of what's in the store is not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not healthy. Think about all the aisles with all these packaged foods.
Yeah. Well, we don't want to risk being holier than thou. I ate an energy bar that was wrapped in a shiny package yesterday because I was short on time, because I live in modern day life. But when I got home and I had more time, I made, a Mexican dish with potatoes and rice and black beans and meat, cilantro,
Absolutely.
So you do your best. And that's definitely the message that will come through in my book, or if you come to see me.
Absolutely. I think that's the most important thing. We do live in the modern world. Mm-hmm. It's that we want to raise awareness. We want light bulbs to go on. It's like, okay, weigh the averages, have more of these healthy foods and less of the scale of these unhealthy foods.
Yeah. And I had a great, really good supervisor when I was going through school, and he taught me a number of good tidbits, but one of them was, of course, one of the more helpful things you can communicate to a patient is, of course you're feeling this, of course you're feeling that, of course you had this reaction. Yeah. In modern day life, there's a lot of courses. This book is trying to answer that question that maybe people out there have asked in their mind, or the question's there, they just haven't connected the dots on it. Why do I feel bad? And that's kind of really what I was going for. Why do I feel bad? So I try to give
it safe to say that shifting the foods you eat and your lifestyle can, in and of itself, improve your mental health? I'm not saying if you have a condition that it's going to cure it. We're not talking about cure, but I'm saying improve.
Yeah, well, it's definitely like dominoes. Just patient yesterday, every time I explain science to my patients and I use my hands, I can see them gloss over, but some of it gets through the barrier. And I asked him about his sleep, and I said, you were having some problems waking up in the middle of the night. And he said, yeah, no more. And I said, what do you think happened? And he's like, well, the sugar. I said, sorry? He said, use the sugar. He said, stop eating so much sugar at night, because if I eat sugar, my blood, he repeated back the gist of what I was saying about, insulin spikes, and then reactive hypoglycemia, and then a cortisol and adrenaline response in the middle of the night. And he got the gist. And so he's sleeping better and coincidentally feeling better. So this is kind of how the dominoes can fall for people if you take care of the body that we live in.
Exactly. For the short term, and then all those good ingredients is going to help you for the long term. Yeah.
I mean, Alzheimer's, dementia is definitely on the rise.
Absolutely.
Our brain is an organ. It's interesting. Our brain doesn't have the pain sensation that other organs have. So when
Right.
it's diseased, it's going to be brain fog, memory lapses, mental
Right.
symptoms. It's not going to be like, oh my God, I'm, like what happened in your knee or your kidneys or your heart.
Exactly. You
Very
can't,
tough.
other than a headache, but I mean, most often it's silent. You
Mhm.
can't really tell. Now, how about brain fog? Talk a little bit about that.
So there's a good theory about brain fog, stemming from excessive immune response in the brain.
Mhm. Mhm.
There's what they've identified when they test lab rats. They'll inject them with dead bacterial cell fragments called
Uh-huh.
LPS, lipopolysaccharides, and then they'll observe the rats or mice exhibit quote unquote sickness behavior.
Mhm. Mhm.
Sickness behavior is basically all the symptoms of depression:
Right.
isolation, slowing down, not socializing, kind of just resting. They don't last as long in the forced swim test. They kind of give up. And so when there's too much inflammation in an immune response, you will kind of convalesce. You'll go away and hide. You'll kind of go to the cave and just rest and stay away from everybody. Well, I guess that's the version of mice depression. So
Mhm.
anyways, the scientists have kind of discovered how excessive immune messengers can stimulate excitatory neurotransmitter receptors in the brain. If you overexcite the brain, that causes a sort of static. It's hard to focus. There's too many thoughts happening at once. You can't be linear with your thinking and actions, and it's foggy.
It's foggy. Yeah. So in other words, it's another sign. It's a canary singing, hey, there's something going on.
Definitely. Yeah, brain fog is really popular with autoimmunity, a condition where
Yes.
there's an excessive immune response, unnecessary, excessive,
Mhm.
over the top immune response.
Mhm.
So not all of us have autoimmunity, but we all do have the chronic low-grade systemic inflammation going on from our diet and lifestyle inputs:
Exactly.
sugar, artificial lights, too much time indoors, not enough time socializing, not
Right.
clean air, not clean
Yeah.
water. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. All those things. All those things. So I hope our listeners are hearing the importance, because I hear a lot of people will say, they're just, you know, they might not call it foggy, but there's just not like they used to be, not mentally as sharp as they used to be. And it's a challenge, but it's a sign that you need to talk to someone and figure out what's going on and make these lifestyle changes.
Well, there's a great book, The End of Alzheimer's by Dale Bredesen, who was a scientist and a doctor that kind of got adopted into functional medicine. He talks
Mhm.
about the 36 holes in the ceiling, and it could be, vascular. It could be heavy metals. It could be
Yep.
toxicity. It could be blood
Mhm.
sugar issues. So if you're in a 7-minute appointment and you tell your primary care doctor, I'm feeling a little foggy, it does put pressure on the doctor to say, oh, don't worry about it. We all get that when we get older. End of conversation.
Mhm.
So that's the reason why I wrote this book. That's probably the reason why Dr. Bredesen wrote his book. I hear you have a book coming out.
Mhm. Mhm.
We want to help
Yeah.
people make connections.
We're making connections, and we want people to be aware that these are changes that each one of us can make. And like you said earlier, it doesn't have to be perfect. We all live in the real world. We all have stresses. But when we're aware, okay, when we go to the store, we have a much better chance of selecting ingredients that are going to be helpful and not harmful for us. Okay, there's so many pesticides. The pesticide issue alone is just
Yeah, I think I heard a news story about glyphosate. A certain percentage of the population has glyphosate in their urine. Glyphosate.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. That's the
And,
CDC. It just came out. Yeah. It's like, come on. And so then when we talk about this, and I talk about it a lot, about eating organic, and it's hard. It is
Mhm.
more expensive, but then you ask yourself, okay, then make trade-offs. If everything can't be organic, then go to environmental working group, and then they have that list of the dirty dozen or the clean 15, right? And they're talking about which have less chance of being covered with pesticides.
Sure. So, for in my website, as a teaser, I put out a 25-page ebook free. In exchange, you put in your email.
Yeah.
That's the payment. You put in your email. I'll get you on the newsletter, and you download the book, and it's got 5 recipes, and they're all simple. It's like how to cook. The cast iron pan is my favorite way. How to cook a chicken breast. How to cook a steak frittata, which has a bunch of veggies and healthy eggs in it. And so it's going to help you hopefully overcome that resistance, the knowledge gap, the confidence gap, energy gap, the effort gap. It's got to be easy. Not everybody can make poached eggs with watercress and salmon for breakfast every day. We gotta be reasonable, but we can do it. We can definitely
do it. That's wonderful. So, and at the end, we'll make sure we have the link to your website. And what is it?
The mentalwellnessdiet.com.
Okay, beautiful. Real easy. Real easy.
Tabs, free ebook. That's where you can go and click.
Okay, yeah. So that's one of our action steps. We all need to do that. And thank you for doing that, because that's real helpful. We're all busy. It's easy to get overwhelmed, but if these are simple recipes that we can integrate into our lives, well, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's got to be fun, and I think that was the driving force behind writing a book in the way that I tried to write the book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you did a really, really wonderful job. So again, I want people to get this book. We'll have the link below, and it's the Mental Wellness Diet.
That's right. Subtitle is Ancient Wisdom, Evolving Science, Modern Day Options.
Wow. So talk a little bit. I imagine there's a lot of research coming out in this whole topic that we're discussing. Can you highlight like a little bit of it?
Sure. The last 5 chapters are entitled on back to diagnosing normal and normal brain function in our brain, and what it needs to function and what are the functions. The last 5 chapters respond, and that's about neurotransmitters, how neurotransmitters are created and eliminated, and the specific vitamins and minerals and other nutrients that are needed for that process. The next chapter is fuel, and that's all about mitochondria and how important mitochondria are to provide the energy for brain cells so that those brain cells can function, so we don't have brain fog, so we don't feel low, so we feel energetic and have our zest. The next chapter is build, and that's about the structure of the brain, the flexibility and all the fatty myelin to increase the speed. You need nice structure to have good communication in and across the brain. And the last 2 are related to the immune system. It's about protect and balance. So protect is you want to have some immune activation in your body, your brain, not too much. There's nutrients related to that to kind of dampen over excessive immune function. And then the last one is balance. So there's so much information out there about serotonin and dopamine, and that's great, and they're important. What I've learned in school and learned in practice and have learned from some of the newer research is the importance of the balance between excitation and inhibition in the brain. And so there's the primary excitatory neurotransmitter is glutamate, and those receptors are AMPK and NMDA, and then gamma aminobutyric acid is the main inhibitory one. And the brain is kind of built like a house of cards. You kind of need that balance for even to focus. Our brains need enough GABA response to inhibit other thoughts so we can stay having the excitatory signals on the one thought that we want. So you need both happening at the same time. And
Right.
to give your brain the best shot at striking that balance,
Striking that balance.
there's a lot of diet and lifestyle things you can do.
Exactly. So it goes back to what we're saying to our listeners is get a copy of this book. And I'm not, don't always promote books, but I feel so with my listeners, we talk so much about this, but this is, you really pull a lot of it together.
Yeah. And it, again, try to give an analogy or two and make it digestible, and people hopefully walk away with, I can do this, I can try, I can get started.
Exactly. So it's the mental wellness diet. Is your website the best way our listeners can be in touch with you?
Yes, that's the best way. If any listener had a question or wanted more information, there's Justin at thementalwellnessdiet.com. So there's an email, and that's at the bottom of the webpage. And again, the webpage is thementalwellnessdiet.com.
Beautiful. And we'll have the link. Below our podcast here, and we're on YouTube. Okay. So and then we'll get this out to our listeners. So are you active on social media at all?
No, not so much. It's a balance for me, still practicing and got a family, and trying to follow the principles of the book, which when I put them all on the table, some things are more important. I'm practicing what I preach.
Yes. But I understand. I truly understand.
I just really like to write. So you can find on my website some longer form blogs. And I focus on that instead of Instagram and Facebook posting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that we'll have our listeners check those blogs out. And I don't know about you, but I find the writing is relaxing. It's a quiet way you can pull things, your thoughts so it sounds like you're good at writing and you like it, and you got a lot of important information.
Yeah, there's some sort of pull for me, and that's kind of part of my meaning and purpose, being the doctor teacher.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, we are so grateful for all this really important information. The truth is, making these lifestyle changes can literally, and they transform people's lives. We're talking about health, wellness, longevity, not succumbing to a chronic illness. I mean, we've talked about that, not you and I, but as clinicians, we've spoken about the incidence of chronic illness is skyrocketing. And a lot of it has to do with making these essential lifestyle changes.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, all chronic illness starts out undiagnosed. And what's that like for the person? You start out with a lot more questions than answers. And, the way us humans are built, we can blame ourselves or ignore or deny. It can be a long road to getting that diagnosis. And especially if healthcare is, the way we're describing it, it's a big uphill battle. And so, the things that you put out, the books that I write, Chris Kresser, everybody, trying to empower people and help them feel a little more hopeful, if nothing else.
Exactly. I think that's what each of us is doing in our own way. And then collectively, we support one another. We let people know, like, wow, here, you've got this great book, and on your website, you've got those blogs. And there's a lot of good, important information out there. And then we can honor Chris Kresser. I know many people who don't know who he is. It's like, he's one of the functional medicine pioneers.
Yeah.
And they need to know who he is. And so we support one another. It's like we're on the same page. Each of us has our own little, like the sheets of music. Each has our own little tune, and But
Family.
core is the same. It's the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah, it's that's kind of heartwarming to think about. Yeah, I think we're all kind of at it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's awesome. So again, I know you're busy. Thank you so much for taking this time,
Yeah, thank
Justin.
you. This was fun.
Yeah, really, really appreciate it. So we'll get this posted on YouTube and then get this out to our listeners. And then I'll send you a link and then you can do the same thing. And I am on social media. I am on Facebook. I am on LinkedIn. Those are my two primarily. And we do have others, but the main two are LinkedIn and Facebook. I'm really doing more on Facebook. So
Okay.
yeah, we'll get it out.
Okay. Thanks for your
All
time.
right. So Justin Bethoney, nurse practitioner, and it's the mental wellness diet. All right. Thanks
Okay.
again.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.